All right, ladies, all of you incredible women out there who have an intention to make a greater impact. There is a phenomenal woman that I am introducing to you today. She's actually been on the podcast before, and she is an incredibly successful businesswoman, made even greater impact beyond the four walls of her endodontic practice, teaching, supporting, impacting dentists in a bigger way. She's the founder of eSchool. If you don't know what that is, then who are you anyway? Just kidding. eSchool is this amazing platform for teaching dentists and endodontists accelerated mastery of endodontics. And she's also a highly conscious influencer and leader, incredibly connected to her spirituality and her greater power. I cannot wait for you to hear this conversation. We're going to be talking about what did it look like in terms of impact when she realized she needed to live life on her terms. What does it mean to be in alignment, and what does vibration have anything to do with this? And my favorite moment that you can look forward to in this conversation is when we identified the constriction that happens when we try to control everything. I know, I'm speaking to you as a former control addict myself, versus the art and the magic of allowing. You're going to want to earmark this incredible episode. Get ready for Dr. Sonia Chopra. Hello and welcome back to the Women Who Make an Impact series here on the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy. And guys, today I'm so excited to welcome a really beautiful human, a healer, a woman who is most certainly making an enormous impact in our industry, someone whose name you've heard before on this podcast, but we're going in a whole new direction today. I'm welcoming back to the show Dr. Sonia Chopra. She's the first female endodontist in Charlotte, North Carolina, board certified, TEDx speaker, Forbes contributor, and in addition to running her thriving practice, she created a groundbreaking digital education and community support system for general dentists and endodontists who want to up-level their technical skills in endodontics, their patient experience, their overall business models. And she created this incredible platform called the eSchool. And with her vision, she's literally revolutionizing the reputation of endodontics. I'm so excited to have her on the show to support each and every one of you in what it looks like for the mindset in order to create the impact. So join me in welcoming Dr. Sonia Chopra. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's always so amazing to be here with you.
I'm so happy to have you here this morning. We're always really in sync, Sonia and I. For those of you watching on YouTube, we're wearing matching colors. These things matter in energetics.
They do.
So I'm so happy that you're here today because you've made such a big impact already. And I'd love to know, what does that mean to you? So I witness your impact, but what does making an impact mean to you?
You know, it is really going beyond myself and realizing how, like, my purpose on this planet is really to be in service to others. And, you know, I have a gift that I feel like needs to be shared. And when I finally saw how that gift could help others, like, I knew that I had to do something about it. And really, like, at first, you know, going through dental school, becoming the dentist, opening up my own practice, I thought that that was supposed to be my impact, was just my practice. But I realized it had to go beyond the four walls of my practice. It was bigger than that. And then I'm so grateful that I was given that vision to see that I could go bigger than just my practice.
So beautiful. So what did it take, Sonia? There was that journey where you had this beautiful insight of what that could look like, a vision, let's say, of greater impact. What did it take for you to take action on that? Because, you know, in dentistry, I know you and I agree, things seem so pre-prescribed.
Yeah. For
very
sure.
narrowly defined definitions of success, definitions of achievement. So, what did it take for you to stretch that perception and go beyond?
Yeah, I did everything I was told to do, right? I went to dental school, I opened up my practice, and I was trucking along for years, and the practice was growing, and I thought like, okay, this should be making me feel really fulfilled, and it wasn't. And I'm like, there's something else here. So I just started to pay attention to the feelings that I was having inside. I was like, there's something else that's itching to get out. And I just started to pay attention.
Mm.
And when I started to realize what my gift was, and because I was teaching, like I was teaching at a local GPR, I was just volunteering, right? And I was like, I'm doing a good job here. It's a gift, but this is the only opportunity that I'm teaching. And then I started to give like community lectures, and I started to realize I really enjoyed that. So I started tapping into the feelings that were making me happy. And teaching this one subject of root canals was actually very like fulfilling for me. So I think grabbing onto those feelings is really important. And that's where I started to just pay attention. And I started getting signs and signals and downloads, and I let it guide me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. What needed to change in your idea of what success looked like in dentistry?
So my definition of success had to change, right?
Mm.
I was working like crazy in my practice, and I wasn't feeling successful. I wasn't with my family. My family was growing, my practice was growing, and everyone on the outside looking in would say, "Oh, she's so successful," but I wasn't feeling successful because my definition of success I don't think was clear. So
Mm.
once I clarified what that is, which required a vision of what I really wanted my life to look like, then I started to see the change. And it was okay, I don't want to work 5 days a week at my practice. I
Mm.
actually want to fulfill some of my passions. I actually want to spend time with my family. And I don't want to go on the prescription of what everyone else wrote for me. I wanted to start to write and create my own story.
Yeah. So, what I'm hearing is in creating the vision for the impact on other people, it was also going to impact you.
Yeah.
So, I'd love you to expand a little bit on that interconnection of your values and the critical component of identifying what those are in order to create the bigger impact.
I think when you really focus on what is important to you, your vibration changes,
Mm.
right? And when you can live your life on your terms, like again, your vibration just changes. And then when your vibration changes, it just changes everything around you.
Mm.
I didn't really understand that while I was going through it, but now that I'm kind of through it, I can see that a little bit more clear. It's a lesson that you just learn along the journey. I really didn't understand that as I was going through this whole process.
Yeah, we don't get taught about vibrations in dental school.
No, no, not at all. But I noticed that once I was aligned with my values,
Mhm.
things just started to fall into place. I became happier. My vibration shifted, changed. I started attracting more things into my life. And then things just got better. But I had to allow all of that to happen. I couldn't create a resistance towards it. I had to make sure that I allowed that to come in.
And that's such a beautiful point, Sonia, because I think as high achievers who've gone through dental and medical school, we know how to do things.
Yeah.
We know how to get things done, but we're not very good at allowing things.
Yeah.
In fact, when things kind of fall, I don't know if you ever had this experience, but I know personally, when things feel unstable or like they're falling apart, I know I tended to dig in deeper with control,
Yeah.
dig
Like
in deeper.
constriction, right?
Oh,
And
yes.
you can feel it in your body. And that's what I mean. Like that feeling in your body when you're like this versus, such a difference.
Mhm.
It's such a difference. And so whenever I feel like this, that's my sign to actually just let go and just surrender. And then I see the shift if you can really surrender, right?
So that requires trust.
Mhm.
So how did you cultivate that deep connection with trust?
That was a long road. I'm not going to say that that was
Mm.
overnight. That definitely was a long road. It also, I had a spiritual moment that actually taught me that. And, I started to read things. I think what you digest is important. I started to get rid of things like the Real Housewives, show that wasn't bringing me any good energy. I started to read things that were more nutritious for my mind and body and spirit. And I started to learn in that sense. But I think really understanding that, the universe does have your back,
Mm.
and really allowing things to just happen. Like I say a mantra, like what is meant for me will find me.
Mm.
And that's true. And if I have to keep fighting to get something, I just let it go.
Mm.
I went through like a decade of fighting and resistance and
Mhm.
realizing it wasn't working. And it really led to burnout that now I'm just like, okay, even this year has been such a period of slowness and I'm so happy about it. It's been great. And, the same amount of stuff is happening. Like the same amount of success is happening, yet I'm being a little bit slower, which is great. But you
Which is
have to allow
also
it to
it's
happen.
such a paradigm shift in dentistry because we're
Yeah.
so convinced that the more we do, the faster we do it, the more we cram in,
Right.
the greater the efficiency, the
Yeah.
greater the outcome, the greater the success.
Right.
And so telling your body to slow down is such an antithesis of what we've been practicing.
Right. I mean, it started with I was working 5 days a week in my practice. And I know some people, when they graduate, they're working 6 days a week. They feel like they
Mm.
need to work Saturdays, right? Like that's insane. And
Yeah.
then there's this myth that, oh, if I don't work that many days, I'm not going to make as much money. And I think everyone goes through that like production anxiety. And I went through that. But I saw that, if you're smart about your time and you really value your time, which is probably the thing I value the most out of anything. And then I started to see how could I rearrange my time in my workday to actually be twice as productive in less amount of time. And then slowly I went from 5 days to 4 days to 3 days to two. And now I work like 1 to 2 days a week. And look at all this extra time that I have now. I didn't lose production, which is the key. But what's beautiful is that now I have time for self-care, for family, for friends. And that to me now feels more like success. But I had to let go of a lot in that process. And I think that one shift in my journey is what allowed me to understand the concept of allowing and surrender and letting go.
So good. And just energetically, we were talking about vibrations, how you
Yeah.
show up energetically when you come from that place of calm,
Yeah.
abundance, not needing to go
Right.
after and grab and control.
Right.
You show up completely differently in interaction with patients, with colleagues,
Yeah.
with business opportunities.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, I'm still human. I
Mhm.
still have my moments of control freakness, of anxiety, but I have such a different level of awareness now that I can
Mhm.
catch it and release it a lot quicker. I still can fall to my triggers. I still can, have a bad day, but I can get out of that bad day a lot faster now.
So what does that look like for you? How do you witness it? What is the awareness that you have? What does that look like to you? And then how do you release it?
I mean, it's literally a feeling in my body. Like
Mm.
I'm like rigor mortis, right? Like I can feel it. It's super tight. And that, again, that's my sign. Or if I like have trouble, like something makes me a little short of breath, I'm like,
Mm.
okay, that's my sign to just pause. And when you pause or you take a breath, you do a little bit of inhale, exhale, regulate your nervous system, you can let it go. And it's really about inserting those pauses in your day so you don't snap at somebody. So you're not short with somebody. It's so important,
Yeah.
right? But
It's so
also honoring that you're human and that you can still go through these things. Like I'm not perfect in any way, but I can definitely catch it.
Yeah, so beautiful. So beautiful. I totally agree, Sonia. I think inserting the pause kind of prophylactically is
Mhm.
also so important, kind of
Yeah.
to keep that stress and anxiety at bay, or if not at bay, at least recognize it in the moment. Because I don't know if you agree with me about this, but I think dentistry is unique in that we become so disconnected from our own bodies that we are completely out of awareness
Mm-hmm.
as the day goes by. Like we wouldn't even notice, at least that was my experience. I wouldn't even have noticed if my heart was racing or my shoulders were uptight or my whole body was tense. It took me years just to become aware of those signals in my body.
Right. I think awareness of those signals is key. I mean, we spend all our entire day taking on everybody else's energy, your patients, your team. It's so funny. I came home from work last night. On Mondays, I work a long day. I work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And my kids have started to tell me that Monday night dinners is basically me complaining about work, right? And then, so last night I was like, oh, it was like a full moon kind of day yesterday, right? But it wasn't, because we were like closer to the new moon actually. But
it felt that way during the day.
It felt like a full moon kind of day. My team agreed with me, but I came home and my one comment to my family, they're like, how was your day? I'm like, yeah, it was a full moon kind of day. Like I wanted to keep it at that, but then I couldn't. And I was starting to talk about my patients, and and my daughter and my husband just started giggling. I said, listen, you've got to understand how much energy I collect from other people during those 12 hours. It is a lot. And I come home with it and I have to somehow get it out. And now I'm thinking maybe I need to sage myself before dinner.
I think that's a great idea.
I think so.
But I think that this is something we don't talk enough about in dentistry, is that we are literally invading people's comfort zone in terms of their energetic protection. Not just that, but they're showing up in pain, in anxiety, in fear. They're bringing all that energy with them, and it impacts us whether we like it or not, whether we think we're strong enough or not. It has an impact. And I agree with you. There's got to be some kind of a ritualistic process where we cut off that energetic attachment. Yeah.
I think that might be my next step, because I understand, like, they don't want to hear that at the dinner table. And I get it. So I'm thinking maybe Mondays I do come home, I do a little ritual, and then I join my family for dinner.
Yeah. I even used to create a ritual, like a really brief one, right between patients. And speaking about making an impact, what have you needed to change in your rituals for yourself? Like you mentioned some things about, putting away certain TV shows, consuming different kinds of media in order to step into this next iteration of yourself to have a greater impact. But what else has had to change in your behavior patterns in order to kind of bring on that new energetic resonance?
I mean, the biggest shift has really been my mindset, and just making sure that I show up with a mindset of love. I think it's really hard sometimes when you are the leader and when you are running a team while trying to take care of humans at the same time. And when you just try to look through the lens of love, or give yourself that reminder or set that intention every day, and just remind your team you're here to love them, remind your patients you're here to love them. Sometimes it takes me that time to pause before I go into my day. Just take literally maybe 3 minutes, take that pause, have that intention, and start the day. When you actually set that intention, you have a better day. There's no doubt about it.
100%.
And then when you can create that habit, it's beautiful when it keeps showing up over and over. But I had to first take care of myself. I had to heal myself so that I could heal others. And that's where the journey started, is that journey of self-discovery, changing my mindset, believing in myself, knowing I can do things. As when I first came onto the scene as an endodontic educator, there weren't many, young brown girls talking endo. There's very little female educators, right? I had a lot of imposter syndrome that, who am I to play this part?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it. And I think when you come with the mindset also of like, even if I can just help one person, it does make it all worth it.
Absolutely. And that's the impact. That's
Yeah,
the impact. We tend to think of impact as broad sweeping, but sometimes the most transformational impact is in-depth impact in one person.
correct.
Yeah, that's so cool. I know that in your journey, you've had to rewrite and rebrand yourself over and over again. I'd love you to share a little bit about how that has been a part of this journey and allowed you to have that greater impact.
So I think when, I don't know how everybody is, but sometimes, when you have an idea, and I love to have like BHAGs, like big, hairy, audacious goals, right? And when I do that, sometimes it can make my idea seem like overwhelming and I can't do it. And so sometimes, like, if you have something that you want to make an impact for, just start.
Mm,
Just start with one thing, right? And that's what I did. And we're going to use eSchool as an example, right? eSchool came onto the scene as this one idea. I made this online course and I combined it with, some coaching hours, right? I'm like, okay, that's all I'm going to do. And again, in the background, I was just thinking, okay, it'll be worth it if I help just one person. And that kind of is what fueled me to get the project done, right? I ended up putting it out there saying like, oh, join the wait list or whatever. And I was like, okay, well, now it's too late. I can't turn back around. I have to complete this thing. And then I had someone kind of tell me, like, just get it out to the world. You can, kind of critique it, or like, you can fix it along the way. So another one of my things that I tell people is like, roll things out, get things out into the world as a B minus. Don't shoot for an A plus, because your A plus can come with time. You're going to go through and see how you can improve your product, and you're going to be able to just tweak it along the way. So don't try to roll it out as an A plus. So I got things out. I was pretty close to an A plus. I wouldn't even say it was a B minus. Maybe it was an A minus, right? But I've slowly, just kind of improved it along the way. And what I think that I didn't realize, what I know I didn't realize, is how things would shift organically through this whole process, and how eSchool has a number of iterations now. Some people just wanted to like buy the content. So I just packaged it up and like, there's a DIY version, right? Plus there's a version where you actually get my mentorship. Then people are like, oh, I want a hands-on component. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, let me see what I can do. And just based on what is meant for me will find me, right? And you pay attention to those things, then you can say, oh, well, maybe let me go research and see if this is a possibility. And then I created eSchool Live, which is a live patient hands-on program, right? And now I have the DIY, I have the mentorship, and then I have the hands-on. But I didn't create all of those things in the beginning, right? And now the other thing that's happening is my blog and everything that I write online has always been intended for doctors, dentists, okay? But what I never intended was for patients to find this blog. And I cannot tell you how many patients have found the blog, emailed me, said they have this same problem, how my blog has helped them. And there's a whole nother population of people who are wanting this type of education because they want to be empowered patients. So what I thought was my impact in dentistry was just on dentists. My impact, because I just started and I just did the one thing, has grown into an even bigger impact that I never even knew was going to happen.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful, and totally reinforces the importance of trust.
Yes. Yep. And so I've decided to rebrand my website this year, because now I have two audiences. I have the dentist, and even then I also started to do workshops on like how to run your business and how to find time in your life so that you can enjoy your life. So I now teach dentists clinical endodontics. I teach dentists how to scale their business, but also grow back their time for themselves. And now I teach patients how to be empowered patients in the dental world. So I have three different audiences. It's allowed me to rebrand. and also take ownership of what I really believe who I am, which came, again, more imposter syndrome. I started my website as soniachopradds.com, and now I shifted to drsoniachopra.com because that is who I am. And that was a big mistake in the beginning because it was originally Dr. Sonia Chopra, but I second guessed myself.
Wow.
And then I switched it. And let me tell you what a pain in the ass it is to change your domain and change all the links everywhere. So I will tell everyone who's listening to this, believe in yourself, go with what your heart and gut are telling you, and go big from the beginning.
That's such good advice. That's such good advice. From the beginning, trust your gut.
Yeah.
Yes. Such an important part. I also wanted to mention that you just came back from India, and that is where you grew up. How old were you? Oh,
no,
you did.
I was born here.
You were born here, but you spent a lot of your childhood there.
Yeah. So every summer we would go back so my parents could see their family. Yeah.
So India was a big part of your childhood.
It really was. Old India was a big part of my childhood.
Yeah. That's so funny. We were just talking about how it's changed so much from what you remember.
Yeah. And it has and it hasn't. And part of me was a little sad to see all the improvements. And it was nice to have the comforts of my own home. I will say this was the first trip that I actually stayed in a hotel. I've never stayed in a hotel in India. I've always stayed with family, and I'll never not stay in a hotel ever again because it was lovely. But I had a robe, I had a working shower. Like, going to India as a child, you had a bucket to shower with.
Yeah.
And that you had to fill up with hot water, and you had a little bucket to pour the water over your head. As much as I wanted my children to experience that, I was also okay with them not experiencing that. But it was so comfortable, and it was so nice in a hotel and having my robe after my shower. I loved it.
So cool. I'd love to just take a moment to revisit that little girl who would go to India every summer. Let's take her back to about 6 or 7 years old, the younger Sonia. What did she dream? What were her dreams?
Oh gosh. I don't know if I had my own. I had what my Indian parents, told me that I had to do.
Yeah.
I knew probably at that early on that I was supposed to be some form of doctor. And it was, and marriage was a big thing. I knew that was on the docket. I didn't have a choice. Luckily I had a love marriage, and I didn't have to get arranged like my parents. But I feel like when you're an Indian child, you need to study and find a husband. Those are like the only two things on our checklist. Yeah. So I did both. I did everything I was supposed to do. I even married the Indian man. And now I'm at a point in my life where I kind of want to break the rules.
What do you wish you could say to that 6-year-old Sonia?
In a way, I'm really grateful for the structure that my parents gave me. I'm a little worried about my own children, to be honest. Like, I don't want to impose those same Indian beliefs on my children, but what if that makes them not have a job when they grow up, right?
Yeah.
So there's a little fear there. I am grateful for the values that my family they created for me, but I think they're still good values. And they are my values. But I have to just be careful that, we are living in a different day and age, and I want some of those values to continue to be with my family, but I also want my children to have the freedom to create their own.
And so knowing that, I mean, you've already given us so much advice, but for those incredible women in particular who are listening to this episode and who are burning with the desire to make their own impact, what advice would you give to them?
Trust. Just trust and know that what is meant for you will find you. And if you have something that, you want to share your gift with the world, I feel like it's really important to do it. And your impact does not have to be on millions of people. Your impact can be on one person, and it should be just as special.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us here today. It's been so awesome chatting with you. It always is.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you so much for all of you joining us here today. And I think the message is loud and clear, is really the importance of trust and listening to your gut and letting it lead. And remember, when you feel good, that's when you can do good. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Business of Happiness podcast. If this episode brought you new perspective and value, I invite you to subscribe so that you catch all upcoming episodes and leave us a review. And if you know of a friend or colleague who could benefit from this perspective, share this episode with them and empower their day. For more information about the Business of Happiness and the Radical Happiness for Practitioners course, find me on www.thebizofhappiness.com. See you there.